He has 7 days left. 7 days before his wolf tears itself out of his body and never comes back. 7 days before the mate's denial curse that killed his mother does the same to him. And the woman who could save him? She's standing in the corner of the throne room, wearing servant's gray, head down, trying to be invisible while he parades his 10th rejected bride in front of the entire kingdom. My name is Kathleen. I'm the royal healer, which means I get to watch people destroy themselves, and I'm not allowed to stop them. Nathan Blackthorne, Alpha King, has spent a decade refusing to believe in fated mates. He watched his mother die from that very bond when he was 15, and he swore he'd never let the moon goddess control him the same way. So he rejected 10 perfect brides, 10 noble daughters with pure bloodlines and alpha wolves, 10 women who wanted nothing more than to stand beside him. And now, with 7 days left before the curse consumes him, he's about to make the most incomprehensible decision of his life. He's going to choose the one woman in that throne room who has no wolf, no status, no political value. The servant girl who's been invisible to him for 6 months. And when I tell you why, when I tell you what she actually is beneath that carefully maintained facade of powerlessness, you're going to understand why the moon goddess has been laughing at him this whole time. Because Linda isn't wolfless. She's just waiting. And what she's waiting for is about to burn this entire kingdom down. 10 years ago, Nathan Blackthorne's mother died, screaming his name, begging him to find his mate before the curse took him too. He was 15 years old, standing beside 2 graves, one for his mother and one for the father who denied her for so long that his wolf ate him from the inside out. The mate denial curse. Ancient magic from the first days when wolves forgot they were human and humans forgot they had wolves. Deny your true mate, the one the goddess herself chose for you, and you have 1 lunar cycle before your wolf decides you're not worth saving. Nathan's Aunt Hilda found him that night, covered in dirt from digging those graves with his bare hands because he wouldn't let anyone help, wouldn't let anyone see him break. She knelt beside him in the mud, and she made him promise. Never mate, never bond, never let anyone have that kind of power over you again. He was a child. He didn't know that some promises are cages you build for yourself, locked from the inside. The throne room glittered with candlelight and barely concealed contempt. I stood in my usual place, tucked in the shadows behind the dais where healers belong, watching nobility parade their daughters like prized horses at auction. Bride number 10 was Lady Agnes Silvermane, descended from the first wolves, an alpha bloodline so pure it practically glowed. She was beautiful in that calculated way, every gesture practiced, every smile measured. She'd been preparing for this moment since Nathan rejected her the first time 10 years ago when they were both barely adults. Now she stood there in midnight blue silk that cost more than most families earn in a year, absolutely certain this time would be different. The council certainly thought so. Lord Valemont was practically salivating, already calculating the political alliances an Agnes-Nathan union would create. Nathan sat on that throne like it was made of thorns, which in a way it was. Every king in his bloodline who'd sat there had faced the same choice, the same curse, the same impossible math. Love or power, heart or kingdom, your mate or your sanity. The ceremony dragged on with all the usual pageantry. Agnes's father listed her accomplishments like she was property to be appraised. Her wolf is of strong, pure alpha bloodline, trained in combat and diplomacy, fluent in 4 languages, skilled in strategy and statecraft. She can give you strong heirs, your majesty. The future of the kingdom. Everything fell silent when Nathan finally stood. He was 35 now, in his prime, and the 10 years of denying his nature had carved him into something harder than the boy I remembered. His wolf lived too close to the surface these days, gold flickering through his eyes when he was angry or tired or too close to the full moon. I could see what the others couldn't, the tremor in his hands that he hid by clasping them behind his back, the tightness around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights, the barely controlled violence that hummed under his skin like a second heartbeat. He was deteriorating. The curse was patient, but it was winning. Lady Agnes. Nathan's voice cut through the golden air like a blade through silk. You honor me with your presence and your offer. I watched Agnes's face, saw hope bloom there like spring flowers, fragile and doomed. But I must decline. The hope died. What replaced it was worse than anger. It was humiliation compounded by history, rejection layered on rejection until it became identity. She'd built her entire life around this moment, this second chance, and he'd crushed it in fewer than 10 words. The court erupted in whispers that sounded like hornets. Lord Vailmont's face went purple. Your Majesty, with all due respect, you've now rejected 10 suitable brides. 10. The law requires an heir. The kingdom requires stability. Your wolf requires. He trailed off because even political schemers know better than to mention the mate curse directly in open court. Nathan's smile was all teeth and no warmth. My wolf will be fine, and I'll choose a bride when I find one who wants nothing from me. Agnes's voice shook when she spoke, quiet but carrying in that terrible way grief does when it's given voice. I never wanted anything from you except the chance to stand beside you. It would have been enough. I could have had enough. If you just let me. Nathan looked at her then, really looked at her, and for a moment I thought maybe this time he'd see what was right in front of him. But his Aunt Hilda shifted in her seat, that tiny movement that wasn't a movement at all, but a reminder, and Nathan's face closed like a door slamming shut. You would have been perfect. That's the problem. He turned away from her, from the council, from all of it, and that's when his eyes landed on the serving girl in the corner. I noticed her earlier because I notice everyone the court ignores. She was perhaps 20, dressed in the rough gray wool that marked her as palace staff, head down, trying to be invisible the way servants do when nobles are having emotions too big for their bodies. Her name was Linda. I knew, though I'd never spoken to her. She'd appeared at the palace 6 months ago, with no references and no past anyone would discuss. And the only job she could get was the lowest of the low because rumors said she was wolfless. Defective. Broken. In our world, if you can't shift, you're not really a person. You're just a human-shaped absence where a wolf should be. Nathan stared at her for 3 heartbeats. 4. 5. The entire court followed his gaze, collective confusion rippling through the room like wind across water. When he spoke, his voice was different, not softer, but stripped of all the political veneer that usually coated his words. That one. The room went so silent I could hear the candles burning. Linda's head snapped up, eyes wide with something between terror and disbelief. Lord Vailmont found his voice first, sputtering like a candle in the wind. Your Majesty, she's not even presented. She's a servant. She has no wolf. Nathan descended from the dais with liquid grace that was all predator, all alpha, all the violence he kept leashed behind protocol and crown. I didn't ask for her credentials. I asked for her. Lord Vailmont looked at me, desperate, and I could have helped him. I could have explained that Nathan was having some kind of breakdown, that the curse was affecting his judgment, that this was madness. But I'd seen something they hadn't. When Nathan looked at Linda, his wolf went quiet. The tremor in his hands stopped. The gold in his eyes flared and then settled into something almost like peace. I knew what that meant. Oh, God has helped them both. I knew exactly what that meant. Linda did something then that sealed her fate. She didn't bow, didn't grovel, didn't simper or preen or show gratitude. She just looked at him with dark eyes that had seen too much already and asked, why? Nathan tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle he hadn't expected to be interesting. Because you're the only person in this room who isn't performing. The council exploded in protest. Agnes let out a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. Hilda stood, her voice cutting through the chaos with the authority of someone who'd ruled as regent until Nathan came of age. Nephew, I must insist you reconsider. This girl is unsuitable in every conceivable way. She has no bloodline, no training, no wolf. She cannot produce heirs. She cannot defend the pack. She cannot even be presented at court as Luna. What exactly do you imagine she can do? Nathan was still looking at Linda when he answered. Survive me. That's more than any of your carefully selected brides could manage. The marriage contract was drawn up that night by candlelight and fury. The council couldn't legally refuse, The Alpha King's word was law even when that law made no sense, but they could make sure the contract had teeth. Clause after clause designed to give Nathan an easy out, an escape hatch when he came to his senses. Consummation must occur within 30 days or the marriage is void. The bride must demonstrate wolf abilities within 60 days or face exile. Any credible challenge to her fitness can be brought before the council for trial, and buried in the legal language where only someone like me would notice it. If the Alpha King dies without producing an heir, his uncle Lord Valemont inherits the throne. I watched Linda read the contract in a small antechamber while the court celebrated or mourned depending on their allegiances. She read slowly, lips moving slightly, and I realized she'd probably taught herself to read. Most wolfless don't bother. What's the point of literacy when you're not considered fully real? When she finished, she looked up at me. I was the only other person in the room. They're giving him permission to throw me away. I move closer, lower my voice. They're giving him 30 days to decide if you're worth keeping. You're giving yourself 30 days to decide if he's worth saving. She laughed, bitter and bright. I'm a wolfless servant who was pulling weeds in the garden this morning. What exactly am I supposed to save an Alpha King from? From himself, I said. From the curse. From dying alone in a body his wolf has abandoned. But first, you're going to have to survive the wedding night. The ceremony itself was a formality rushed through like an inconvenient errand. No celebration, no joy, just words spoken by a priest who looked like he was conducting a funeral. Nathan's face was carved from stone. Linda's hands shook so badly she could barely sign her name on the marriage register. When the priest said, "You may seal the bond," Nathan didn't kiss her. He just turned and walked out of the chapel, leaving Linda standing there in a borrowed dress with ink still wet on the document that had just legally bound her to a man who couldn't even look at her. The court watched her with a mixture of pity and satisfaction, already writing the story of how the upstart servant girl thought she could be queen. I took her arm before anyone else could. "Come, the council will want a witness." She went pale. "Witness what?" "The consummation. It's written into the contract. Physical proof that the marriage is real." I felt her go rigid under my hand, every muscle locking. I thought I'd have time. I thought she couldn't finish the sentence. Nathan was already walking toward the royal chambers, his personal guard flanking him, and the council following like carrion birds circling a dying animal. The bedchamber was obscene in its luxury, all silk and velvet and gold leaf that spoke of wealth Linda would never have imagined existed. Nathan stood by the window, back to the room, radiating the kind of tension that precedes violence. The council arranged themselves outside the door, close enough to hear, waiting for sounds that would confirm the marriage was consummated. Lord Valemont's voice carried through the wood. "The contract requires physical evidence, Your Majesty. We'll wait here until it's done." I saw Linda's face cycle through emotions too fast to name, landing on something that might have been resignation or might have been rage. Nathan finally turned to look at her. His eyes were more wolf than man now, gold bleeding through the green. "We wait until they get bored, until they give up and leave. It could take hours. It could take all night." Linda's voice was steady when she spoke. "The contract says 30 days for consummation. It doesn't say it has to happen tonight." Nathan's laugh was sharp enough to cut. "You think they'll accept that technicality? You think they won't use any excuse to void this marriage?" She studied him for a long moment, and I watched understanding dawn across her face. "You're as trapped as I am. You need this marriage to be real, or they'll force you to choose Agnes." He didn't answer, which was answer enough. What happened next, I only know from what Linda told me later, weeks afterward when we'd become something like friends. She said Nathan paced the room like a caged wolf while the council waited outside, time stretching into torture. Finally, around midnight, he stopped in front of her. "We need to sell this. Make them believe. What do you suggest?" Linda's response was so quiet he had to step closer to hear it. "I suggest you think about what happens to me if they invalidate this marriage. I have no family, no money, no wolf. Where exactly do you think I go? Back to the streets? Back to whatever I ran for to end up in your kitchens, pulling weeds?" Nathan's face changed then, something cracking in the careful control he maintained. What did you run from? She met his eyes. The same thing you did. People who wanted to make me into something I'm not. The difference is you had the power to say no. I didn't. So here we are, trapped in a marriage neither of us wanted, and you can't even pretend to want me for one night, so I don't get thrown back to the wolves. The irony isn't lost on me. I promise you that. Something shifted in the air between them. Some invisible negotiation happening in the space where words couldn't reach. Finally, Nathan spoke. Scream. She blinked. What? Scream like I'm hurting you. Make it believable. The council wants proof of consummation. Give them what they expect to hear. Linda understood immediately. I learned later she'd spent years learning to read situations, to understand what men wanted even when they couldn't articulate it themselves. It was a survival skill she'd honed in harder places than a palace. So she screamed. She put her whole body into it, years of real pain channeled into performance. And the sound was so convincing that I flinched even though I was 3 rooms away. She screamed again, adding texture, adding variation, adding the kind of authentic agony that comes from a place beyond acting. Outside the door, I heard the council shift, uncomfortable, satisfied, convinced. They muttered amongst themselves and gradually dispersed, their requirements met, their legal concerns addressed. Inside the chamber, Linda stopped screaming and found Nathan staring at her with an expression she couldn't parse. You're good at pretending pain. Who taught you? Life, she said. The same teacher you had. I'd bet money we took the same classes. Nathan moved to the far side of the bed, as far from her as the room allowed. You can take the bed. I'll sleep on the floor. She looked at the massive 4-poster bed that could have fit 6 people comfortably. We can share without touching. We're adults. He shook his head. You don't understand. My wolf, when you're close at once, he stopped, jaw clenched. It's safer if I keep my distance. Linda pulled back the covers and climbed in, still wearing the borrowed dress. Then fight it. You've been fighting everything else. What's one more battle? The first week was a study in careful avoidance. Nathan left before dawn for council meetings. Linda spent her days learning to navigate a palace where everyone knew she didn't belong. The other servants wouldn't speak to her. She was neither servant nor lady, existing in a social purgatory that had no name. The nobility certainly wouldn't acknowledge her. She was the wolfless upstart, an embarrassment at best, an insult at worst. She ate meals alone in her chambers, slept alone in that too large bed, while Nathan stayed in his study or walked the grounds or did anything that kept him away from her. The only person who spoke to her was Erica, a young servant girl who brought her meals and seemed equally invisible to the rest of the palace. I don't have a wolf either, Erica admitted on the 3rd day, setting down a tray of food Linda wouldn't eat. Genetic condition. Happens sometimes in the bloodlines. Most families hide us or throw us out. My mother chose to throw us out. Linda looked at her, really looked at her. How do you survive here? By being useful enough that they forget to see me, Erica said. You should eat. You're going to need your strength. Why, what happens? Erica's smile was sad. Agnes is coming back. She's bringing friends. Lady Agnes Silvermane had spent 10 years building a coalition of rejected brides, women who'd been passed over by the Alpha King for reasons they'd never understand. And now they had a common enemy. A wolfless servant wearing a crown that should have belonged to one of them. They descended on the palace like locusts, all silk and venom, and carefully worded insults designed to draw blood without breaking social protocol. I watched them circle Linda at her first official court function, their smiles sharp as knives. So brave of you to attend, one said. Most will be too embarrassed. Yes, well, another added, when you have nothing to lose, you have nothing to be ashamed of. Convenient. Agnes stood apart, watching, saying nothing, and somehow her silence was louder than their words. Linda stood there in a dress that had been altered 3 times to fit her and still hung wrong, surrounded by women who knew exactly how to make her feel small, and she didn't break. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She just smiled politely and said, "How kind of you to notice my bravery. It takes courage to be yourself when everyone expects you to be someone else. You know all about that, wouldn't you, Lady Agnes? 10 years is a long time to wait for someone who's never coming back." The room went silent. Agnes's face went white, then red, and for a moment I thought she might actually strike Linda right there in front of everyone. But Nathan appeared at Linda's elbow, materialized from nowhere, his presence ending the confrontation before it could escalate. My wife looks tired. We'll be retiring early. He guided Linda out of the hall with a hand at her elbow, and the touch, the first real contact they'd had since the wedding night, sent visible shivers through him. His wolf recognized her. His body knew what his mind refused to accept. In the corridor, away from watching eyes, he let go like she'd burned him. You shouldn't antagonize Agnes. She has powerful allies. Linda turned to face him. She spent 10 years trying to make you love her. I've spent 1 week watching you avoid me. The difference is I'm not still trying. Nathan's jaw worked. You don't understand the political situation. My uncle wants the throne. The council wants a stable succession. Agnes would give them that. You give him nothing but questions. Then why did you choose me? The question hung between them, the same one she'd asked in the throne room a week ago, still unanswered. Nathan looked at her for a long moment, and I watched from the shadows, always watching, and saw something in his face that might have been longing or might have been fear. Because everyone else wanted something. You just wanted to survive. That felt safer. Linda's laugh was hollow. How's that safety working out for you? The accident started small. A chandelier that fell where Linda had been standing moments before, blamed on old chains that should have been replaced. A spooked horse during a riding lesson Linda hadn't asked for, chalked up to poor training. Medication in her tea that would have made her violently ill if Erica hadn't noticed the bitter smell and dumped it out. Each incident investigated, dismissed, forgotten by everyone except Linda, who was learning to trust her instincts. Someone wanted her gone, and they weren't being subtle about it. I found her in the healer's quarters on day 12, holding her ribs where the fallen chandelier had clipped her. Bruised, not broken, but painful. I need to learn who's trying to kill me. She said it calmly, like she was asking for bread. I started applying poultice. That's a long list. Can you narrow it down? Anyone who wants Nathan to marry Agnes instead. Anyone who wants the throne to pass to Lord Valemont. Anyone who thinks a wolfless servant is an embarrassment to the kingdom. So everyone. She winced as I pressed too hard. Basically everyone. I studied her carefully. Why haven't you told Nathan? He wouldn't believe me, Linda said. Or worse, he would believe me and not care. But Nathan was noticing. I saw it in council meetings where his attention would drift toward the windows overlooking the courtyards where Linda walked. Saw it in the way he'd go still when someone mentioned her name. Saw it most of all in the way his wolf was shredding his control day by day. The mate bond doesn't care about politics or pride. It's a supernatural force that predates human civilization, and it has one job: bind fated mates together so completely that separation becomes death. Nathan was fighting that force with everything he had, and it was destroying him. He couldn't sleep unless he could smell her scent, which meant he was stealing into their chambers after she was asleep to lie on his side of the bed, careful not to touch, just breathing her in. He couldn't eat unless she'd eaten first, some primal part of his wolf demanding to know his mate was fed. And the aggression, oh goddess, the aggression. He nearly killed a servant who'd accidentally brushed against Linda in a corridor. Had to be physically restrained when a visiting lord made a comment about her appearance. His wolf was trying to claim her, protect her, bind to her, and Nathan's stubborn human pride was blocking it at every turn. I found him in the training yard on day 15, beating a practice dummy to splinters with his bare hands, knuckles bloody, eyes wild. You're killing yourself. His answering snarl was more wolf than human. I'm fine. You're not fine, I said. You haven't slept in days. You're losing weight. You nearly shifted during yesterday's council meeting. This is what the curse looks like, Nathan. Your mother went through the same thing. His fist hit the dummy, so hard the post cracked. Don't compare me to her. She was weak. She let herself love him. She died because of it. She died because your father denied the mate bond for 30 years, I said. She died because he was too proud to accept what the goddess had given him. And you're making the exact same choice. He finally stopped hitting the dummy, chest heaving, blood dripping from his hands. Linda isn't my mate. She can't be. The goddess wouldn't be that cruel. I started wrapping his knuckles with clean cloth. The goddess isn't cruel. She's just very, very patient. And her sense of humor is darker than you realize. Nathan pulled his hands away. What's that supposed to mean? It means you chose Linda specifically because you thought she was safe. Powerless. Wanting nothing. And the goddess is laughing because you chose your own mate while trying to avoid fate. The look on his face would have been funny if it wasn't tragic. Day 20 brought the exposure. Agnes didn't come alone this time. She brought 3 other rejected brides and enough political leverage to force a council hearing. The charge was fraud. The evidence was public knowledge. Linda's wolflessness, her lack of bloodline, her failure to meet the contract requirements. Lord Valemont presented the case with barely concealed glee. The contract clearly states the bride must demonstrate wolf abilities within 60 days. It's been 20 days, and she's shown nothing because she has nothing to show. This marriage is a sham. Nathan sat on his throne, looking like he wanted to murder everyone in the room. The contract also clearly states 60 days, not 20. You're early, but we can resolve this now, Agnes said, stepping forward. Her voice was reasonable, diplomatic, designed to sound helpful rather than vengeful. Let Linda shift. Right now, in front of the court. Prove she has a wolf, and all questions are answered. If she can't, well, the contract resolution is clear. Exile for fraud. Nathan's hands gripped the throne arms hard enough that I heard would crack. Linda stood beside the throne where Luna should stand, and I saw her face cycle through calculations. She knew she couldn't shift, knew this was the trap closing, knew Nathan wouldn't save her. What she did next, I'll remember until my dying day. She stepped forward, away from Nathan's potential protection, and addressed the court directly. You're right. I have no wolf. I can't shift. I never have been able to. The gasps of shock were performative. Everyone had suspected, but hearing her admit it was different. Agnes's smile was triumphant. Then the contract is void. Marriage is fraud. Linda wasn't finished. But the contract doesn't void until day 60. And I'm not the one trying to end this marriage early. She turned to Nathan, and her voice gentled. You chose me knowing I was wolfless. You saw something everyone else missed, or you saw nothing and chose me anyway because I was convenient. Either way, you chose. The question now is whether you stand by that choice when it's hard. Nathan's face was unreadable. The court held its breath. Lord Valemont leaned forward, sensing victory. Your Majesty, the law is clear. Luna must have a wolf. She's admitted she doesn't. You must annul this marriage and choose an appropriate bride. Every second Nathan stayed silent was another cut across Linda's dignity. I watched her stand there, spine straight, waiting for him to choose politics over her, and I saw the exact moment she accepted it was over. She was already turning to go, already planning her next move, how to survive exile, where to run, when Nathan finally spoke. The trial is over. Linda stays. Agnes's triumph curdled into confusion. But your Majesty, she has no wolf. The contract says she must demonstrate abilities within 60 days. She has 40 days left. Nathan's eyes were pure gold now, his wolf so close to the surface that his voice came out rough. And I'll thank the council for not wasting my time with premature challenges. Linda turned back, shocked, and Nathan looked at her for the first time in days. When she fails on day 60, you can cast her out. Until then, she's my wife and your Luna. Do you understand? It wasn't a confession of love. It wasn't even kindness, but it was a choice. He'd chosen her, again, in public, when letting her go would have been easier. Linda's voice was steady when she spoke. 40 days. I'll try to make them count. The court dispersed in confusion and disappointment. Agnes looked like she'd swallowed glass. Nathan stood and walked out without another word, leaving Linda standing there trying to understand what had just happened. I approached her carefully. He bought you time. Now the question is, what will you do with it? Linda looked at me with those dark, too old eyes. Learn to survive 40 days as a condemned woman walking. That night, Nathan broke the pattern. Instead of avoiding their chambers, he went there directly, knowing she'd be there. Linda was standing by the window, still in the dress she'd worn to court, and she didn't turn when he entered. Thank you. For what? He said. for giving me time to prepare for exile. That's not, he started then stopped. I'm not good at this. Being married? Being human. She did turn then. Why did you defend me? You made it clear you don't want me here. You've avoided me for 20 days straight. You could have let them annul the marriage. It would have solved all your problems. Nathan moved closer, and I'd bet money his wolf was driving him forward even as his mind screamed to retreat. It wouldn't have solved anything. My uncle would still be plotting. Agnes would still be waiting, and you'd be dead within a week. Linda blinked. What? You think I don't know about the accidents? The chandelier, the horse, the poison tea? He was close enough now that she could see the gold in his eyes, the way his hands shook with the effort of not touching her. Someone wants you gone, and they're not being careful about it. At least here, in the palace, I can try to keep you alive. That's the only reason? His jaw clenched. That's the only reason you need. But it wasn't the only reason, and they both knew it. That night, for the first time since the wedding, Nathan slept in the bed. On his side, careful not to touch, but there. Linda lay rigid on her side, hyper-aware of his breathing, his warmth, the barely restrained violence that hummed through him. In the dark, his voice was rough. Your scream. Wedding night. That wasn't acting. She went still. No. Where did you learn pain like that? The same place you did. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I'm sorry. For choosing you. For binding you to this. For not being able to let you go even though I should. Linda rolled over to face him, though in the darkness they were just shadows to each other. If you're waiting for me to say it's okay, I won't. You've been cruel. You've been cold. You've treated me like an inconvenience at best. But I'm still here, and I'm starting to think that means something. What does it mean? She heard the vulnerability under the question. It means I'm not running. It means maybe I'm as trapped by this as you are. It means your wolf knows something you're too stubborn to admit. His hand found hers in the dark, and the contact made them both gasp. The mate bond flared, recognizable, undeniable, terrifying. Nathan's voice was barely above a whisper. If I accept this, if I stop fighting, it will control me. It will make me weak. Linda squeezed his hand. Or it will make you human. There's a difference. Day 25 brought catastrophe. Nathan's uncle made his move. Lord Valemont had been gathering allies for years, patient as a spider, and now he sprung his trap. A council vote of no confidence based on Nathan's failure to produce an heir, his unstable behavior, his unsuitable marriage choice. 7 council members supported the motion. 3 stood with Nathan. It was enough to call for an investigation into his fitness to rule. I found Nathan in his study, surrounded by legal documents, looking like a man watching his kingdom burn. They're going to force a formal inquiry. Valemont has been planning this for years. Your marriage to Linda just gave him the excuse he needed. Nathan's hands trembled as he read through the charges. Dereliction of duty. Failure to secure succession. Mental instability. He looked up at me, and I saw fear there for the first time. They're going to declare me unfit. They're going to take the throne. They're going to kill Linda to remove any legitimacy questions. What should I do? Accept the mate bond, I said. It's the only thing that can save you now. The curse is accelerating. You have days, maybe a week before your wolf fractures completely. Once that happens, they'll have real grounds to declare you unfit. Your only chance is to complete the bond, stabilize your wolf, and show the council you're in control. He shook his head violently. I won't be controlled by fate, by some cosmic force that thinks it knows better than me. Then you'll die, I said flatly. Your wolf will go feral. Valemont will execute you for the safety of the kingdom. Linda will be exiled or killed. And Agnes gets to watch everything she wants to go to your uncle instead. Is that really better than admitting you might have been wrong about love? Nathan's response was bitter. My mother loved my father. It killed her. Your mother loved a man who denied her. I corrected. That's what killed her. The curse doesn't punish love. It punishes denial. There's a difference. I left him there, surrounded by documents that proved his kingdom was slipping away, and went to find Linda. She was in the gardens, the only place she seemed to find peace, pulling weeds because old habits die hard and she needed to feel useful. Day 30 tomorrow. The consummation deadline. I sat beside her on the cold ground. Have you and Nathan? No. Her hands stilled in the dirt. He can barely look at me. The marriage will be voided tomorrow, and Valemont will have exactly what he needs. Unless. She looked at me, hope and fear warring in her expression. Unless what? Unless you save him before he can save you, I said. The mate bond is the only thing that can stop the curse. But it requires more than proximity. It requires acceptance. Completion. The mating mark. Linda's voice went small. He doesn't want that. Doesn't want me. He's terrified of wanting you. There's a difference. I pulled a small vial from my pocket. This is a suppressant. It's what your parents gave you as a child to keep your wolf dormant. Linda went white. How did you? I'm old, and I pay attention. Your wolf was never absent. It was suppressed. Probably by parents who thought a wolf daughter would be taken from them, sold to the highest bidder. They were trying to protect you. But the suppressant is wearing off. I give it 6 months before your wolf surfaces whether you want it to or not. I can give you something to speed that along, or you can let Nathan keep believing you're broken. Your choice. Linda stared at the vial like it was a snake. If my wolf comes out, if I'm not wolfless, then everything changes. I'll have value, bloodline, political worth. Everything Nathan thought he was avoiding by choosing me. Exactly, I said. He chose you because he thought you were powerless. What happens when he discovers you're not? She took the vial. I guess we'll find out. Night 30 was supposed to be simple. Nathan would claim consummation had occurred privately. The council would note the deadline met. Life would continue. But Valemont wasn't taking chances. He showed up at the royal chambers with 3 council members and demanded physical proof. Bed sheets stained with virgin blood, where the marriage was void. It was medieval. It was barbaric. It was also technically legal under the ancient marriage laws Nathan himself had chosen to invoke. Linda stood in the bedroom, Nathan beside her, both of them trapped by protocol and pride. This is unnecessary, Nathan said, voice deadly quiet. The marriage is consummated. Valemont's smile was poisonous, then proving it should be simple. We'll wait. Nathan's control cracked. His hand shot out, grabbed Valemont by the throat, lifted him off the ground. The other council members scrambled back. Nathan's eyes were pure gold, his wolf taking over. And for a terrifying moment, I thought he'd actually kill Valemont right there. Linda's voice cut through the violence. Nathan, put him down. The Alpha King doesn't take orders from a wolfless servant. Valemont choked out. Linda moved between Nathan and his victim, placing her hand on Nathan's wrist. The contact made Nathan flinch, but his grip loosened. Look at me. Nathan, look at me. He did. His eyes met hers, and some of the gold receded. You're losing control. This is what they want. They want proof you're unstable, so they can take everything. Don't give it to them. Nathan dropped Valemont, who crumpled to the floor gasping. The room was silent except for harsh breathing. Finally, Linda spoke to the council, her voice steady. You want proof of consummation? Fine. Give us privacy for 1 hour. You'll have your proof. Nathan's head snapped toward her. Linda, no. She looked at him, and something passed between them that I couldn't read. 1 hour. Then you can have your barbaric traditions satisfied and leave us alone. Do we have an agreement? Valemont struggled to his feet, massaging his throat. 1 hour. The council withdrew, posting guards at the door. The moment they were alone, Nathan rounded on Linda. What are you doing? We can't, I won't. She was already moving to the bed, pulling back the covers. Do you have a knife? What? A knife. Small one. He produced a blade from his boot, confused. She took it, made a small cut on her palm. Let the blood drip onto the sheets. There's your proof. I'm not going to let them void our marriage over outdated virginity rituals. Nathan stared at the blood soaking into white linen. This is fraud. This is survival, she corrected. Unless you'd rather actually consummate the marriage? He went very still. Would that be so terrible? His voice was rough. You don't understand what you're asking. The mate bond, if we would complete. I mark you. Claim you. You be bound to me forever. Is that really what you want? Linda set the knife down carefully. I want to not be thrown to the wolves. Literally or figuratively. If that means binding myself to you, then fine. At least you're a wolf I chose. Nathan moved closer, and the air between them crackled with tension. You didn't choose me. I chose you. She met his eyes. I'm choosing now. His hand came up, traced her jaw, the first gentle touch he'd ever given her. If we do this, there's no going back. The bond is permanent. Death is the only dissolution. I know. Do you? He leaned closer, his breath on her lips. Do you know what it means to be bound to someone who spent 10 years refusing to let anyone in? To a man who watched his mother die from a bond, just like this? To an alpha whose wolf is barely controlled on the best days? Linda's hand found his chest, felt his heart racing. I know what it means to be alone. I know what it means to be nothing to everyone. And I know that when you look at me, I'm not nothing. That's enough. The kiss was inevitable, crushing, desperate. His wolf surged forward and she met it without fear. Hands in his hair, body pressed against his, and when they fell onto that bed, it wasn't gentle or romantic. It was a survival instinct meeting supernatural fate. And when he marked her, teeth sinking into the junction of her neck and shoulder, the mate bond slammed into place with the force of destiny finally allowed to complete itself. The hour passed. The council returned. Linda presented blood-stained sheets and a fresh mating mark, and Valmont's face went through several colors before settling on defeated purple. The marriage was consummated. The bond was complete. Linda was officially Luna, and more importantly, she was Nathan's mate in the eyes of the goddess and the law. They left in furious silence. Nathan and Linda lay in the destroyed bed, both trembling from the bond's completion. She could feel his emotions now, a river of feelings he'd dammed up for a decade, all flooding through at once. Regret, fear, possessiveness, and underneath it all, threaded through everything else, something that might have been love or might have been relief that he was finally allowed to stop fighting. Your wolf, Linda whispered. It feels quiet. Nathan pulled her closer, his hand over the mark he'd left. It feels complete. For the first time in 10 years, it feels settled. Linda shifted in his arms. So what now? Now, Nathan said, we deal with the consequences. Because completing the bond solved one problem and created a dozen others. My uncle still wants the throne. Agnes still wants revenge. The council still thinks you're unsuitable. And you still need to demonstrate wolf abilities in 30 days where they can challenge the bond's validity. Linda was quiet. About that, there's something you should know. Day 35 brought revelation. Kathleen had given Linda the accelerant, a compound designed to break down the suppressant in her system and allow her wolf to surface. Linda took it in secret, didn't tell Nathan, wasn't sure what would happen. What happened was agony. Her body rejected years of chemical suppression all at once, her wolf clawing its way out of a cage it had been locked in since childhood. Nathan found her convulsing on the floor of their chambers, foam on her lips, eyes rolled back. He thought she was dying, though the mating bond had somehow poisoned her, supernatural rejection of an unsuitable match. He carried her to Kathleen's quarters, demanding answers, threatening murder, his wolf in full panic because mates aren't supposed to hurt each other and Linda was clearly in pain. Kathleen took one look and started laughing. That beautiful, mad girl. She took the accelerant. Nathan's confusion was almost comic. What is accelerating? The one I gave her to break the suppressant her parents forced on her as a child. Your mate was never wolfless, Your Majesty. She was caged. And right now, those bars are coming down. The implications hit Nathan like a physical blow. She has a wolf. She's always had a wolf. And you knew. Everyone assumed she was broken. It was easier than explaining that her parents loved her enough to hide her. Kathleen started brewing something that smelled like death and medicine. Now her body is remembering what it should have been all along. This is going to be, she paused, searching for the right word, catastrophic. The transformation took 3 days. Linda's body literally rewriting itself, bones shifting, instincts flooding in, a wolf that had been dormant for 20 years suddenly demanding space and a consciousness that had learned to function without it. Nathan stayed with her through all of it, held her when she screamed, restrained her when the wolf tried to surface too fast and her body couldn't handle it, whispered things to her that I'm certain he'd never said aloud before. Mate, mine, stay with me. I've got you. You're safe. On the 3rd day, her eyes opened, and they were pure silver. Not gold like an alpha, not brown like a beta, silver like the moon on water, a color so rare that I'd only read about it in ancient texts. Moon touch, they called it, blessed by the goddess herself. Linda sat up, and power radiated from her like heat from fire. Her wolf wasn't just present. It was ancient. It was massive. It was something that predated the Alpha Beta Omega hierarchy humans had imposed on their wolf nature. Nathan backed up a step, instinctive, and his wolf, the most dominant predator in the kingdom, lowered its head in recognition of something higher in the pecking order. "What are you?" His voice was awed and afraid in equal measure. Linda looked at her hands, felt her wolf settling into place like a key in a lock. "I don't know, but I think we're about to find out." The council demanded a demonstration on day 40. They wanted proof Linda could shift, proof she was suitable, proof the marriage wasn't still a sham. Nathan tried to refuse, but Linda stopped him. "Let them look. Let them see what they demanded." The demonstration was set for the full moon, maximum dramatic effect, in the courtyard where the entire court could witness. Agnes stood in the front row, her face a mask of certainty that Linda would fail. Valemont next to her, already calculating how to use this failure. The other rejected brides scattered through the crowd like landmines. Linda stood in the center of the courtyard, wearing a simple dress, looking small and human and fragile. "Shift," Valemont commanded. "Prove you have a wolf or be exiled as a fraud." Linda looked at Nathan. He stood apart from the council, and she could feel his emotions through the bond now. Fear that she'd fail. Fear that she'd succeed, and everything would change. Love that he still couldn't voice, but that burned through their connection like wildfire. She smiled at him. Then she let her wolf out. The shift was nothing like normal transformations. Most wolves shifted with effort, cracking bones and pain. Linda's shift was liquid grace, her human form flowing into wolf form like water finding its level. And the wolf that emerged made the entire courtyard go silent. She was massive, easily twice the size of a normal alpha wolf. Her fur silver-white that seemed to glow in the moonlight, her eyes molten silver that looked through you rather than at you. Ancient power rolled off her in waves, and every wolf in that courtyard, from the lowest Omega servant to Nathan himself, felt the instinctive urge to bow. This wasn't dominance. This was divinity. Linda's wolf circled the courtyard slowly, letting everyone see, letting everyone understand what they dismissed as broken. She stopped in front of Agnes, and the other woman couldn't see her eyes, couldn't hold her ground. Agnes backed away, and her wolf whimpered in her chest, recognizing the superior predator. Then Linda's wolf moved to Nathan, sat in front of him, tilted her head, waiting. Nathan knelt. The Alpha King knelt in front of his mate's wolf, and the symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. When he placed his hand on her massive head, the mate bond flared visible, gold and silver light twining together, and the goddess's laughter echoed across the courtyard. Not literal laughter, just the sense of cosmic satisfaction when a plan comes together exactly as designed. Linda shifted back to human, standing naked in the courtyard because clothes don't survive transformation, and Nathan immediately shed his cloak to cover her. The look in his eyes was something beyond love, beyond possession. It was reverence. Valemont found his voice first. "Moon touched. That's impossible. The bloodline died out centuries ago." "Clearly not," Kathleen said from the sidelines. Her voice carried despite not being loud. "The goddess has a long memory, and she really doesn't like being told who can and cannot be blessed." Agnes's voice was thick with tears. "You let me think I was better than her. Let's all think she was nothing." Nathan's response was sharp. "She let herself be underestimated. There's a difference. And maybe if you'd spent less time performing worthiness and more time actually being worthy, I might have chosen differently. But I didn't. I chose her. The goddess chose her. And anyone who questions that can take it up with the moon herself." The demonstration was over. The marriage was validated beyond any legal challenge. Linda was not just Luna. She was moon-touched, blessed, marked by the goddess as significant. The council had no choice but to accept it. Valemont's coup lost all momentum. Agnes's coalition crumbled, and Linda stood in that courtyard, covered in Nathan's cloak, and felt something she'd never felt before: safe. Nathan pulled her close, whispered against her hair. You could have told me. You could have warned me what you were. She leaned into him. Would you have believed me? He laughed, sharp and pained. No, I would have thought you were insane. But the revelation created new problems. A moon-touched Luna was rare, powerful, and politically complicated. Other packs started sending envoys, requests for alliances, marriage proposals for unmated sons and brothers, everyone wanting to tie themselves to the pack that had the goddess's favor. Nathan's council, the same council that had tried to exile Linda weeks before, now fell over themselves to gain her favor. It was nauseating to watch, Linda said to me one evening, hiding in the healer's quarters to escape the sycophants. They hated me when they thought I was nothing. Now they worship me because I'm something. It doesn't feel like vindication. It feels like proof that people are garbage. I handed her tea. People are people. They respond to power because power keeps them safe. You have power now. The question is what you'll do with it. Linda sipped the tea, made a face at the bitterness. Nathan wants me to use it politically, shore up alliances, strengthen the kingdom. I just want to be left alone. Those desires are mutually exclusive when you're Luna. She set down the tea. I know. That's the problem. Being nothing meant freedom, even if it meant pain. Being something means responsibility. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Nathan certainly wasn't ready. The mate bond had stabilized his wolf, saved his life, but it had also opened him emotionally in ways he'd spent a decade avoiding. I found him one night, standing outside their chambers, hand on the door, visibly steeling himself to go inside. You're afraid of your own wife. I kept my voice neutral. He didn't deny it. She's more powerful than me now. The dynamic we had, what little stability we'd found, it's gone. I don't know how to be her mate when she's beyond me. You love her. It wasn't a question. He finally looked at me. So much it terrifies me. What if I lose her? What if the goddess takes her back? What if I'm not enough? Then you love her anyway, I said. That's what mates do. Day 50 brought the final challenge, and it came from the person I least expected. Hilda, Nathan's aunt, the woman who'd raised him, who'd taught him to fear love, requested a private audience with Linda. I advised against it. Hilda was the architect of Nathan's emotional damage, and I didn't trust her not to manipulate Linda the way she'd manipulated Nathan for years. But Linda went anyway, met Hilda in the formal gardens where cameras and witnesses couldn't reach. What Hilda said, Linda told me later, crying away I'd never seen her cry before. She said she was sorry, said she'd watched Nathan's mother die from the mate bond curse, and thought she was protecting him by teaching him to avoid love. She'd spent 20 years molding him into an alpha who couldn't be hurt, and all she'd done was create a man who hurt himself. She said seeing Nathan with me, seeing him finally happy, finally whole, made her realize she'd been wrong about everything. She asked me to forgive her, not for Nathan's sake, but for my own, so I wouldn't carry the weight of her mistakes. Linda wiped her eyes, angry at herself for crying. I don't know if I can forgive her. She's the reason Nathan was cruel to me at the start. She's the reason he rejected 10 women before me. She's the reason he almost died rather than accept what the goddess gave him. I understand that. And I also understand that she was grieving, that she watched someone she loved die and thought she could prevent it from happening again. Grief makes us cruel sometimes. It makes us destroy the things we're trying to protect. Linda looked at me, really looked at me. You think I should forgive her? I think you should do whatever lets you sleep at night, I said. But holding on to anger at a woman who's already punishing herself won't heal anything. It'll just make you bitter. And you fought too hard to let bitterness win now. Linda did forgive Hilda, eventually, and that act of grace shifted something in the kingdom. Hilda became one of Linda's fiercest allies, using her political connections to shore up Linda's position, teaching her the intricate dances of court politics that Linda had never learned as a servant. They formed an unlikely partnership, the moon-touched Luna and the Queen Regent who tried to prevent her existence, working together to stabilize a kingdom that had been fracturing for a decade. Nathan watched it happen with something like wonder. How do you do that? He asked Linda one night as they prepared for bed. How do you forgive people who hurt you? Linda was brushing her hair, catching his reflection in the mirror. I don't forgive them because they deserve it. I forgive because I deserve peace. Holding on to hurt gives the people who hurt you power over your present. I refuse to give anyone that power anymore. Nathan moved behind her, took the brush, started working through her hair with gentle strokes. I don't deserve you. Linda leaned back against him. Probably not. But the goddess gave you to me anyway. So I guess we're both stuck being undeserving together. The intimacy of the moment, domestic, quiet, real, was worth more than any dramatic declaration could have been. Day 60 came and went without ceremony. The contract requirements were met, exceeded, rendered irrelevant by Linda's revealed power. But Agnes wasn't finished. She lost everything. The king she'd loved, the position she'd wanted, the future she'd planned. She had nothing left to lose, which made her dangerous in a different way. She came to Linda alone, no allies, no witnesses, just two women who'd both wanted the same man for different reasons. I was there, hidden, because I didn't trust Agnes not to try something desperate. But what she said surprised me. You won. Agnes's voice was hollow. You won everything I wanted, and you didn't even have to try. The goddess chose you. Nathan chose you. Even the council chose you. I spent 10 years making myself perfect for him, and you showed up, broken and wolfless, and he chose you anyway. Linda's response was gentle. I didn't win. We both lost. You lost the man you loved. I gained a man who fought against wanting me every step of the way. Neither of those are victories. Agnes laughed, bitter. At least you have him. At least you get to wake up next to him, build a life with him, carry his children if the goddess allows. What do I have? What's left for a woman who bet everything on one man and lost? Linda was quiet for a long moment. You have yourself. You have whatever you choose to build next. You're not defined by who didn't choose you. Agnes looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. How can you say that? How can you not hate me for trying to destroy you? Because hating you won't change anything, Linda said. And because I understand what it's like to build your entire identity around someone else's approval. I did it for years with my parents, trying to be normal for them, trying to make them love me despite having no wolf. It almost destroyed me. Don't let Nathan's rejection destroy you the same way. Agnes left that garden changed. I don't know if she found peace, but she stopped plotting, stopped scheming, and stopped making Linda's life hell. Sometimes the best victory is when your enemy stops fighting because they finally understand the war was pointless. Valemont, however, didn't have that kind of character growth. He made one final play, desperate and doomed. He challenged Nathan's right to rule based on an ancient law. An alpha who'd been compromised by mate Bond couldn't be trusted to put kingdom over personal loyalty. It was garbage legal theory, but it was technically in the books. The challenge required a trial by combat. Nathan against Valemont. Winner takes the throne and Luna. It was medieval. It was brutal. It was also exactly what Valemont wanted, because he'd been training for this for years and Nathan had been deteriorating from curse. Except Nathan wasn't deteriorating anymore. The mate Bond had healed him, strengthened him, given him something to fight for beyond pride and crown. The combat lasted less than 5 minutes. Nathan's wolf was bigger, faster, stronger, and when it pinned Valemont's wolf to the ground, teeth at his throat, the message was clear. Surrender or die. Valemont surrendered. Nathan let him live, which was mercy he didn't deserve, and exiled him from a kingdom. Jane, the council spy who'd been working for Valemont, went with him. The council voted unanimously to reaffirm Nathan's right to rule. The kingdom stabilized, and Linda stood beside Nathan's throne, wearing silver and moonlight, the Luna that the goddess had chosen and the people had learned to love. 6 months after the wedding that was supposed to be political convenience, Nathan and Linda held a second ceremony. This one was a celebration, not a contract. This one had flowers and music and genuine joy instead of fear and political maneuvering. Agnes attended, wearing white instead of midnight blue, and she smiled when Linda thanked her for coming. Hilda cried, which I'd never seen her do, and apologized to Nathan for the years she'd stolen from him. Erica stood as Linda's attendant, the wolfless servant girl who'd befriended a queen, and when Linda announced that Erica would be her personal advisor, the message was clear. This Luna remembered where she came from and who stood by her when she had nothing. Nathan's vows were simple. I chose you when I thought you were powerless. I choose you now when I know you're more powerful than me. I'll choose you tomorrow and every day after that. Not because the goddess demands it, but because I want to. Linda's vows were equally direct. You were cruel to me. You hurt me. You made me question my worth. And then you chose me anyway, protected me anyway, loved me anyway. I forgive you for the pain. I choose you for the man you became after it. The priest pronounced them mated under the moon's blessing, and when they kissed, silver light and gold light twined together, visible to everyone, the goddess's approval manifest and undeniable. The celebration lasted 3 days. On the final night, Linda and Nathan slipped away from the crowds, climbed to the highest tower in the palace, and looked out over their kingdom. Everything's changed, Nathan said. 6 months ago, I was dying from denying fate. Now I'm alive because I accepted it. Do you regret it? Accepting the bond? Linda leaned against him. I regret that it took you so long. I regret that you hurt yourself trying to avoid feeling. I regret that Agnes wasted 10 years. But I don't regret us. Even the painful parts. Especially the painful parts. They taught us what we were made of. Nathan pulled her closer. I love you. I know you know through the bond, but I need to say it. I love you. I've loved you since the moment you asked why in that throne room, and I couldn't give you an answer. I love you for surviving me, for saving me, for being exactly who you were instead of who everyone expected you to be. Linda turned in his arms. The moon goddess has a cruel sense of humor. That's how this story started in my mind. She matches mates not on compatibility, but on what will break you open until you learn to stop fighting who you are. But maybe it's not cruel. Maybe it's just that she knows us better than we know ourselves. Maybe she knew you needed someone who wouldn't beg for your love. And maybe she knew I needed someone who'd choose me even when logic said not to. Nathan kissed her, and through their bond, she felt what he felt. Peace, joy, and the kind of love that comes not from falling but from choosing, day after day, to stand together. I watched from below, the old healer that I am, and smiled. The curse was broken. The kingdom was stable. The moon touched Luna, and her alpha king would rule well, would love well, would show their people that strength comes not from avoiding vulnerability, but from accepting it. And when other kingdoms sent their unwanted daughters, their broken sons, their imperfect children, Linda would welcome them. She'd build a court where being different wasn't a flaw, but a qualification. Where the ones no one wanted could become the ones everyone needed. That's the real magic of this story, not the mate bond or the supernatural powers or the political intrigue. It's that Linda took everything meant to diminish her and transformed it into strength. She took Nathan's cruelty and answered it with grace. She took Agnes's hatred and responded with understanding. She took Vailmont's plots and defeated them with truth. And in doing so, she didn't just save Nathan. She saved the entire kingdom from a future where power mattered more than people, where perfection mattered more than presence, where being chosen mattered more than choosing yourself first. The moon goddess does have a sense of humor, but she also has perfect timing. She waited until Nathan had rejected 10 perfect brides. Waited until he'd convinced himself he could avoid fate. Waited until he chose safety over connection. And then she put Linda in his path. The one person who'd make him question everything. The one person who'd survive him. The one person who'd save him from himself. And Linda? She was waiting too, though she didn't know it. Waiting for someone to see her. Waiting for someone to choose her. Waiting for the moment when being unwanted would become irreplaceable. They say love stories are about two people finding each other. But this wasn't about finding. Nathan and Linda were shoved together by contract and convenience and cosmic intervention. This story is about what happens after the finding. It's about choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. About choosing to love when hate would be safer. About choosing to forgive when resentment would be justified. About choosing each other day after day until choice becomes commitment and commitment becomes forever. So here's what I know after 70 years of watching wolves pretend to be human and humans pretend to be wolves. The goddess doesn't make mistakes. When she matches mates, she's not thinking about your comfort. She's thinking about your growth. She's asking, what does this person need to learn? And then she sends them exactly the teacher they require. Nathan needed to learn that control isn't strength, connection is. Linda needed to learn that her worth wasn't determined by other people's recognition. And the kingdom needed to learn that the most powerful leaders are often the ones nobody expected, nobody wanted, nobody valued, until they proved impossible to ignore. If you're watching this and you're the one nobody chose, the one they passed over, the one they said wasn't good enough, listen, their blindness is not your deficiency. Their rejection is not your definition. You're not broken just because they couldn't see your value. You're not less just because they chose someone else. You're waiting for the moment, the person, the situation that will reveal what was always true. You were never the problem. They just weren't capable of seeing the solution you offered. And if you're watching this and you're like Nathan, so afraid of being hurt that you've built walls higher than any palace, convinced that control equals safety and vulnerability equals weakness, I have news for you. Already dying. Maybe not physically, not yet, but emotionally, spiritually, in all the ways that matter. The curse isn't supernatural. It's self-imposed. It's every day you choose pride over connection, fear over faith, isolation over intimacy. The cure isn't finding the perfect person. It's accepting the imperfect person the universe keeps putting in your path and choosing them anyway. Choosing them especially because they scare you. Especially because they make you feel things you've spent years avoiding. Especially because loving them would require you to be brave instead of safe. Before you go, before you click away to the next story, the next distraction, I want you to do something. Look at your life. Really look at it. Who are you rejecting because they don't fit your expectations? What opportunities are you dismissing because they don't look like you imagined? What gifts is the universe offering that you keep refusing because they're wrapped in unconventional packaging? Nathan rejected 10 perfect brides before he accepted the imperfect servant who saved his life. Don't be Nathan. Don't waste years avoiding the very thing that could heal you. The goddess, fate, the universe, whatever you want to call it, has better timing than you do. Better vision, better plans. Your job isn't to understand why. It's to stop fighting what is and start accepting what could be. Leave a comment telling me, what are you still fighting that you should be accepting? What person, situation, truth are you denying because it doesn't fit your plan? I read every comment. I see every story. And I promise you, whatever you're avoiding, someone else in this community has survived it and come out stronger. We're all just wolves and humans trying to figure out how to be both. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. With someone who's been rejected too many times. With someone who's doing the rejecting and doesn't realize they're destroying themselves in the process. And if you want to hear what happens next, because oh yes, there's more, Nathan and Linda's story is just beginning, there's a whole kingdom to rebuild, children to raise, enemies to face, hit that like button and subscribe. The next episode drops in 3 days, and I promise you, you won't want to miss what happens when the kingdom realizes their moon-touched Luna is carrying the air everyone said she could never produce. Trust me, the goddess isn't finished with them yet. She's just getting started. This is Kathleen, royal healer and witness to the impossible, reminding you that the best love stories aren't about perfect people finding each other. They're about broken people choosing each other and becoming whole together. Now go choose someone. Choose yourself. Choose bravery over safety. And watch what the goddess does with your willingness to finally stop fighting fate.